What's up, everybody? It's Carpo once again. I finally have a few minutes to make a video, and I'm ready to make it. It's about activism. Activism is a niche market, and it really is. Each person has, if you know me and know my videos, I have a lot of respect for every culture and every different view. Some people protect certain animals, some people eat the animals. And activism, in a sense, is part of our culture and standing for our rights. Activism against war, activism against, wrongdoing. But I'm an activist of a different sort, and I have chosen to really wage my battles with two major issues. And those issues are food and water. Food and water have become the biggest issues facing our culture today. And if you'd asked me 20 years ago, if you'd told me 20 years ago that water was going to be scarce, I would laugh. Because, I had read that even back then, but it just didn't seem reasonable. Until you do the science, you learn the reasons behind water. I'm not going to do the statistics on water today because it's a big topic to cover in itself. But water, the actual freshwater supply, is something like 1% of the Earth's, water, and most of that's tied up in aquifers and locked up underground. So, I guess what I'm here to say is that the major issues to me are water and food. And to us in America, let's say, and I know there's folks watching in other countries too, but for most of us in the civilized world to have internet, we have no idea what it's like to walk and get water. And 1 billion people, it's 1/7 of the world, 1 billion people walk 3 miles a day or more to get water. And they spend a huge portion of their day traveling to get water. And they carry up to 45, 50 pounds worth back with them. And they don't know what it's like to have fresh water for drinking or for bathing. And I know we take it for granted, and we assume, well, since us in the West, we have more water, then, it must be okay to waste it. And I was under that impression when I was younger that, hey, it falls from the sky. I live in Portland. We have the Bull Run Reservoir up there. But now I'm in Vancouver, and we have an aquifer up here that we're draining just as fast. As we drain the aquifers, sinkholes start to appear, and farmland starts to die, and the land basically becomes barren because it can't sustain itself. So, basically, on top of the 1 billion people that walk 3 miles a day to get their water, 1 in 10 people on the planet have no access to fresh drinking water. That means that 750 million people approximately go every day without clean drinking water. And for an example, in some of these countries, they have less than 1 liter a day per person, or 2 liters a day per person. In the UK, they use average of 150 liters per person. In the United States, it's 575. So we can do the math, and it's not forever. It doesn't live forever. Water doesn't just stay there waiting for us, It dries up. It's up to us all to make a change. Now, you wouldn't think it, but diarrhea is the biggest killer of people in Africa. More than AIDS, malaria, and measles combined. And that's a bold thing to understand. That's diarrhea. People are dying from dehydration through pooping. And it's messed up because 1 in 5 people in Africa, 1 in 5 children die before the age of 5. And it's usually due to complications with the food or water. And 750,000 a year die from diarrhea. And it's just crazy, it's sad, and it's ridiculous. And it's easy for us to close our eyes to the numbers, but the nitrates that are used in farming today and have been used for so long, the nitrates in the fertilizer, seep into the water supply. And in California, I just saw a news article about it, and I maybe might do a video about it, but I figured I'd just throw it in here. There was a county in California, in Monterey County, that basically has no drinking water now because the nitrates are so high in the water that it can literally kill people, kill children. It's dangerous. And the thing about this is it's not going away. It's leached into the groundwater supply from the nitrates that are in the soil from cattle, and from farming, and from not cattle, farming, and the cattle contribute their own waste to the problem. And so we have polluted rivers, polluted water supplies, polluted wells. It seeps into the aquifers and the reservoirs, and we have serious issues. This is one county in California, and this is just beginning for us. This has happened all around the world. Right now in Ecuador, there's a huge issue going on because there was a major oil spill. There was a landslide, and the Trans-Ecuadorian pipeline burst and left a huge spill. I think it was like 1.7 million liters or something big. Maybe it was 170 million liters. I can't remember. It sounds about, one of those. That's a lot. It's millions of gallons of oil leaking into a waterway that supplies millions of people. And these things happen all around the world all the time, and they're easy to ignore. Let's talk about food for a minute, about livestock and about feed. I have some percentages here. Grain. The percentage that's actually used of grain. 48% is used for people. 36% is used for livestock. And the other 17% is used for various other uses, oils, petroleum products. Okay? So people and livestock are basically about equal on grain consumption, and that's crazy to me. How about soybeans? 26% go to people, and 74% of soy goes to livestock. Now that's a huge protein source that could be used for people as well. So the livestock grain that's used every year could feed 2 billion people. So that's more than a quarter, up to 30% of the planet's population could eat. Now, those are just the facts and figures, but that doesn't show the humanity of it, the actual human side of it, the human element. And I can't show you that. I could talk about it all day, but I've never been to Africa, and I have no idea how bad it can be in some of these places. And it's not just Africa, but that's the perfect example. Us in the U.S., as Americans, we just view Africa as, this big continent full of countries. It's huge. It's monstrous. It's a giant place, and there are a lot of people there. And it's it's a major resource zone, and that's why, we basically own South Africa, and it's become the central hub for basically devastating the entire continent. We own Europe, we own Africa, and the only thing stopping us from getting between the two is the Middle East, and we pretty much run that now too. And when I say we, I mean all of the nations and nation states that declare themselves world powers, mainly the United States. And us in America, we're not ignorant, and a lot of people like to say, oh, the U.S. this, or Americans that. We know what's going on. And the Bush family, George Bush and Bush Sr. have bought up the water rights to just about every aquifer in Texas. Now, they've been doing this for, as far as I know, 20 to 30 years, probably even longer. They also bought up all the water rights, I believe, in Ecuador and Brazil. Now, for those of you who think Brazil is just a country that is in South America, Brazil is almost the size of America. Wait, is it Brazil larger than America? I'm not sure. It's up there. It's huge. It's a giant place, and maps can be deceiving, but Brazil is a monstrous place. And these fuckers like the Bush family, and who's that guy that used to do those commercials trying to act like he's all conscious of the environment? That fucking guy. It's that old dude. Anyway, you'd know his name if I said it, but these guys buy up, they moved from oil to what they call natural and green power. And green has just become another revolution, another way to make a buck. And the issue goes so deep, people. I mean, it is intense. It's water. I mean, who would think that water would be a resource, that it's a more valuable commodity than oil? People go to the store every day and buy a fucking liter of water for like $1.50. Buy a gallon of gas for like $3.50. You're paying more for water by the bottle at the store than you are, if you're buying it at a, convenience store, than you are for gasoline. And people don't think much of it. They figure, well, I'm buying clean water. And I try to buy distilled water by the gallon. It's still $1. So what do? We're trapped and we're forced to pay for our water, like we always have been, and we don't think much of it. It's always been an issue in my mind that we pay for water and that we pay for electricity only because hydroelectric power is something that everyone should own, because the river should not be monopolized by a company. And it goes, there are a lot of factors to consider with that, but when it comes down to I digress, trying to stick to food and water here. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm all about Monsanto and all about hating Monsanto and what they're doing to our our food, and genetically modifying it. So this is why I'm making this video, is to let everybody know that I'm very intent about water supply and, making sure that everyone has fresh drinking water, because, I think was it called Tapped? That was one I watched about a year ago. It was a documentary on Netflix. There's Tapped and there's Flow. There's a bunch of them. And if you haven't seen them, please do yourself a favor tonight. If you're going to watch a movie or a documentary, watch one of these about water. There's Flow and Tapped. Or it's Tap, one or the other. But those are just tip of the iceberg. People own our water supply. People in Fiji, there are people in Fiji that have no clean water. I can't remember the percentage, so I'm not going to throw numbers out there, but I think it's over half of the people in Fiji have no clean water. And everybody's seen Fiji water in the stores. And the stuff is expensive. Yeah, they take the fresh water, they pump it out of their water supplies, and then they ship it to other countries around the world, and everybody pays for it. So it's, and it goes deeper than that. There's companies like Nestle and others who are basically diverting all the water supply that go to the farmers and to the people straight from the spring source, and then you get spring water you buy in the store. So be aware of who you're buying from. It's another thing that people need to consider, but being aware of your water consumption is an issue, and I think that we should all work hard to do whatever we can to try to make sure that everyone gets fresh water, because I know we don't realize it. Those of us in this country have no clue what it's like not to have fresh water, but the people of California are starting to figure that out. And once in a while, when they find high levels of lead or arsenic or barium or whatever it may be in the water supply, they have to shut certain areas down for a while. And you hear about it on the news, and then it goes away. But it's not going away. This is going to get worse and worse. And what's going to happen is, what I'm afraid of is that all of our water supplies are going to dry up as the population grows, and at the same time we're going to pollute our last resorts, which are the small streams. And also, to throw that on top, recently, within the last few years, they signed a bill into Congress which basically said that all waterways, it used to be just waterways that were navigable rivers and whatnot that could be done on a canoe, that could be commandeered by the federal government, but now it's all streams and waterways. So at a moment's notice, snap of the fingers, the government can basically commandeer every single river, lake, stream, tributary, waterway, and even man-made ponds on people's property. And recently in Oregon, I remember a story about a guy who went to jail because he got fined for having a small pond on his property to collect rainwater that he uses to feed his animals. And it's a tiny pond. I mean, it was like, 40 feet across or something, maybe even less. And he got a permit for it and everything back in the 80s or 90s. And then they came around saying he couldn't do it anymore. And this is where this is going, people. I mean, they're not... Pretty soon, right now, you're not allowed to collect rainwater on your property by law in a lot of places. unless it's off of your own roof. So, if you can, install some sort of a gutter rainwater collection system. Do what you can to preserve it, because every time it rains, that rainwater just goes down the drain. If everybody had a rainwater collection system on their house, and it was the norm, we would save billions of gallons of water. And I think the misconception is that the water's forever, that it comes out of the rivers, and in a lot of places it does come out of the rivers. But as the populations grow, a lot of these places get it from aquifers, and they are getting drained. And as well, the rivers are getting polluted. And in California, those people are in for some serious shit. Southern California is not the place to live, because if the water supply gets cut short for any reason, when those canals get damaged or go out, it's over, folks. There's some big dangers in living in some of those places. And just as well, places like Arizona and New Mexico, where, if there's a major power outage and the air conditioners go out, there's going to be a lot of deaths, that kind of stuff. And if the water supply was cut off, we'd all be screwed. So let's keep an eye on our water, and I'll try to post up some info about it that I can find. There's some very good stuff out there. Peace.